Hi, welcome to History Talks. I'm your host Will, and this is Sebastian. In this episode, we continue our series on ancient Rome, and we will be discussing the First Punic War. So, Sebastian, tell me, what led to the First Punic War?
Let us observe the state of our two powers. We know a bit about the state of Rome. After coming back from the raids of the Gauls, they had grown stronger, conquering all of the region of central Italy, and even recently conquering southern Italy, defeating Pyrrhus, who was once a general under Alexander the Great. Or more accurately, they drove him back, but it's a story in and of itself.
Wait, do you mind if I stop you for a second there? Does the name Pyrrhus have anything to do with Pyrrhic victory?
Yep, the way they drove him back was, though he was able to outsmart them on the battlefield, their tactics, their formations, they were just able to inflict such casualties that even at the loss of Heraclea, the forces of Pyrrhus took so many casualties that Pyrrhus realized it was not worth it to continue the campaign, and he returned to Epirus.
Okay, that's probably not how he was hoping his name would go down in history, as being associated with a war that winning was so costly that it really wasn't even a victory. But back to the Punic Wars. You had started out by telling us what led to it. So
the Romans had expanded down to the tip of Italy, the tip of the boot, and they had and right across from them was the island of Sicily, which was primarily dominated by another power, Carthage.
Interesting.
Now, Carthage has a long history. The city itself first being colonized before even Rome was founded. It was colonized by a seafaring people called the Phoenicians, who originated around modern-day Lebanon.
And I imagine, Sicily is right in the middle of the Mediterranean, right?
Yeah.
It's, right next to Italy. It's considered, I believe most people would consider it to be a part of Europe, maybe the southernmost tip of Europe in the central Mediterranean there. But Carthage was in North Africa, is that correct?
Yes.
And Carthaginians had come up. They controlled this important center, which is going to be vital to controlling the Mediterranean. So I can see as you set the stage here, why this might be important to the Romans.
Yeah. Now, Carthage is quite a bit different from Rome in a number of ways. First of all, they weren't primarily focused on land warfare. They had built their empire through colonization, mainly through having their merchants go to a place, set up shop, and eventually just outpopulate the locals.
Interesting.
In some cases, they didn't even outpopulate the locals. They just created a little outpost.
Okay, interesting. So they were a more mercantile-based civilization. They were a more seafaring civilization when compared to the Romans.
Yeah. Which meant one of the downsides of this was that their army was reliant on mercenaries.
I see.
Now, Carthage could usually afford to pay out these mercenaries, but it did take mercenaries to protect their holdings, which ranged everywhere from Spain to North Africa to Sicily to even up to Sardinia and Corsica. And they had quickly become one of the largest power in the Mediterranean in terms of sheer land.
Interesting. It's really interesting. They had taken over all this land essentially through trade, through wealth, through seafaring exploration around the Mediterranean. Whereas the Romans were more, they were not reliant on mercenaries.
Yeah.
Instead, they had citizens who were fighting, citizen soldiers who were a land army that would march on whoever may threaten Rome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Rome and Carthage had their disagreements, though it had been mostly peaceful. In fact, they had both found a common enemy in Pyrrhus, but things would come to a head in 267 BC, thanks to two mercenary groups. One was just a group of rogue Romans who took over the city of Messina, which is at the very tip between like the peninsula and Sicily. Like it's the port that leads directly into Sicily.
I got you. And we can put a map on the screen too, but that's important to understand the significance of this port.
Yeah. And on the other side of things, on the island of Sicily, in basically the Sicilian side of, the Strait of Messina, another group called the Mamertines, which translates as the Sons of Mars, was a mercenary group that had taken over that city.
Interesting, and Mars being the god of war. So the Sons of Mars, I'm assuming these guys probably like to fight.
Yeah. Now, the Romans had taken over that group of rogue Italians who had taken over, the side on the Italian peninsula. But now an interesting situation presented itself when it came to the Mamertines. You see, King Hero II of Syracuse, which was the only remaining independent city-state on the island, he did not take too kindly to these Mamertines, especially when they were, raiding the Syracusan coast side. And Carthage didn't like the Mamertines either. So the Carthaginians and the Syracusans teamed up to go attack the Mamertines.
Okay.
Now, the Mamertines were understandably scared, so they called to Rome to help.
Wow.
Now, Rome was very hesitant to participate in the conflict, mainly because, well, one reason was some saw it as a bit hypocritical because, just a few years earlier they had taken out that other Italian mercenary group because they were occupying a city.
Right.
But also because some people just didn't think it was worth it to go to war with Carthage, and some people just didn't think this was any of Rome's business. But ultimately, the decision was made to intervene in the conflict on the side of the Mamertines.
Oh, interesting. Okay, because I'm assuming, or do we know this for sure? Tell me if we know this for sure, but my assumption is Rome must have said there is some sort of benefit to us, some sort of long-term benefit. Maybe Rome would gain, whether they're gaining an ally or whether they are actually gaining a city or a port on the island of Sicily. They must have wanted this, I'm assuming, right? And they saw this is our chance to have an ally to gain a foothold here, to have a casus belli.
Yeah, a way to gain a foothold to push back the Carthaginians who had gone a bit too big for the breeches, and also remember how consuls are only elected for 1 year? Well, that means that if you want your consulship to be remembered, you have to, within the span of a year basically, make some conquest, preferably an important one. That became a major part of consulship. This responsibility to expand the Roman borders in some way.
Oh, that's very interesting. So you get elected, you have 1 year, well, you're one of the two consuls, right? You're elected for 1 year, and the clock starts ticking, and the idea is you have 1 year to bring some kind of glory to your name, right?
Yeah.
Through some form of conquest. And so the consul who was in power at this time said, here's my chance.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yeah, and it would have been especially important because this would have been the first time Rome had expanded outside of the mainland Italian peninsula.
Okay.
And this would lead to the start of the First Punic War, a conflict that would go on for an estimated 23 years.
Wow.
Yeah, though neither side predicted at the time this would be a long-lasting conflict. Now,
yeah, I would imagine if you have a consul who says, "I need to bring glory to my name within 1 year," he's not thinking we're gonna be at this for 23 years.
Yeah. And so Rome lands on the peninsula. They quickly gain the advantage by attacking Syracuse and through military force, they're able to get Hero II to switch sides, which basically gives them a pretty good supply base in Sicily. Something that's important because while Rome has a massive land advantage, Carthage has a pretty big naval advantage.
And we're talking about an island.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, also let me just mention, we talked about how you have the Roman consul wants to bring prestige or glory to their name through military conquest, and so they had their eyes on this conflict in Sicily, and a consul said, this is my chance. What about Carthage? What was their motivation? I'm assuming it's the geographical importance. This is a seafaring nation who is centered around the Mediterranean. I'm assuming it's the geographical importance of having this island right in the middle of the Mediterranean had something to do with why it was so important to them.
That's a pretty big reason why they went to Sicily in the first place. Another reason is that the Mamertines had been a bit of a thorn in their side because the Mamertines would raid them for supplies.
Okay, I see. So it was to push back against the Mamertines and to gain this strategic island.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, it's not known if Carthage even thought that they would get into conflict with the Romans over this issue.
Okay.
Because after all, it was a rogue mercenary band that had taken over some town.
All right. And plus, they knew that the Romans are a land-based army, right? The Romans are not known for their navy. So they now have to get... And do we know, I guess we could bring up a map, but do you know about how far Sicily is from mainland Italy?
It's extremely close.
Okay. So it might be within bridge building distance or a very short boat ride.
Just a bit larger than bridge building distance.
Okay. But still, for a naval, pardon me, just the fact that it is an island at all, and you have a naval power defending it, that puts them at a tremendous advantage there.
Yeah. And so the Romans, their strategy is, go to Syracuse, then go to the main Carthaginian supply base, which is in the southern central part of the island. They take that, but then the Carthaginians, they obviously blockade the island and start performing naval invasions. And this leads to a long, drawn-out conflict, as the Carthaginians are never really able to push back the Romans, but the Romans aren't really able to fully secure the island.
Okay.
And part of this is due to a strategist named Hamilcar Barca, who not much is known about Hamilcar before he entered the war, but what is known is that he was the leader of a natively Carthaginian mercenary group, and he was able to land in the northern part of the island and basically destroy a lot of the Roman supply ports.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah.
Which is what I would expect, a naval power versus a land power. Rome just wants to get its soldiers to the island. At that point, they need to keep them fed. I'm assuming it's an island, you can fish and things like that, but you also have to be able to safely get to the water. So if you have a naval power surrounding you, firing arrows and things like that at you, if you try to cast your nets out in the water, you have a problem.
And Rome tries a few different things. It tries to sneak some ships to North Africa, but that plan fails. But eventually,
Interesting. Rome wants to go to North Africa so they can go in the offensive against Carthage. Okay.
Like a sneak attack almost, but it doesn't work. What does end up working, however, is when the Roman Senate commissions some of the richest men in Rome to build a new navy.
Wow. Okay.
And this time they've some Carthaginian ships have shipwrecked or whatever. They're able to use that to reverse engineer the superior Carthaginian ships.
Okay, that's interesting. So the Carthaginians, because they were a seafaring civilization, had the technology. They had the advanced technology of the day for shipbuilding, right? For sailing. The Romans did not. The Romans said, hey, we've got these nice formations we have for marching across land, but we don't have it. So they are able to capture some Carthaginian ships and essentially try to recreate their technology.
Yeah. And though expensive, the effort to build a new Roman fleet using Carthaginian technology works. They're eventually able to get Carthage to agree to the following terms. Basically, they have to pay a ridiculous amount of silver to the Romans, estimates range anywhere from like multiple tons.
Mm-hmm.
They also have to give up all their Sicilian holdings, and Carthage will be in debt to Rome until it's able to pay off all the silver, which is more than even Carthage can afford.
Wow. Okay. So this is what Carthage had to agree to, or this is what Rome demanded?
These were the demands that Rome was eventually able to enforce upon Carthage.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So Carthage wanted this island as part of their mercantile system to be able to sail around the Mediterranean. And Rome said, we're just going to keep attacking you until you give us the land and the money that we want. Which seems to be the Roman way. That was the way for the Romans to gain glory and to conquest, was to essentially go after somebody who had, or after civilizations or tribes that had land and gold, and go after them until they get what they want. Yeah. Whereas the Carthaginians, it sounds like they were more, let's go trade, let's go expand, and then now we've got these Romans who just want to keep attacking us until finally we're pushed back to the point where, fine, we'll just pay them off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this leads to a few things, and namely, it sets the stage for the Second Punic War, and most importantly, through Hamilcar, because Hamilcar does not forget this insult, because though a mercenary captain, he's still loyal to Carthage. He still loves Carthage, and he goes. He conquers a lot of Spain. Like, I'm sure you're familiar with
this. Is after the Punic War. You're saying he sends his navy, or he sends his the army or the navy under his command over to Spain.
Yeah.
Okay.
He conquers a lot of Spain. Like, I'm sure you're familiar with the town of Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's named after him.
Ah, okay.
Hamilcar Barca, you know.
Okay. Barcelona.
Using the wealth to pay off this indemnity. That Rome had charged.
I see. Okay. So basically, Rome hit them up, said, you have to give us a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And then Barca says, we don't have the money. And Rome says, we don't care, go find the money, right? And he says, all right, Spain it is, let's go raid there, you know?
And Hamilcar was still not happy with Rome,
of course, I would. I mean, I would assume, when anybody imposes unreasonable demands on you, they should expect retaliation, right? That is the natural human response to somebody trying to weigh you down and just make it impossible to live. So Barca says, okay, I'm gonna go get this money from Spain, get them off my back, and when the time is right, I will launch my counteroffensive on them.
Except it wouldn't be him. He wouldn't be able to do it within his lifetime. However, he had a son named Hannibal Barca, and according to legend, Hamilcar had his son swear an oath that he would never be a friend to Rome.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. So this wasn't just some 1-year consulship where he had to gain glory. This was a multi-generational thing where he said, these Romans, we're going to have to get our revenge on them. But we're going to have to get our revenge. I'm going to bide my time. I'm going to raise my son for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is...
is Hannibal going to be the leader of Carthage during the Second Punic War?
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll get into that in our next episode.
All right, that sounds good.
But for right now, Rome had conquered Sicily. It would later go on to conquer Corsica and Sardinia, and it would be quite the threat to Carthage, but Carthage would eventually be able to strike back.
Okay, and that lays the groundwork for the Second Punic War. So good job, Sebastian. Did you have any final words you wanted to say about the First Punic War?
I do not.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to our series on ancient Rome, and we hope to see you all in our next episode as we continue with the Second Punic War. All right, good job.